Okay, so you should be able to see my hands and the screen. Move this out of the way. Okay, if you haven't used the scale is usually hiding right here. Something real quick for you to understand. If there is something on it, it shouldn't read 0. If there's nothing on it, it should read 0. If it's not reading 0, all you're going to do, there's an on button, you're going to press it and hold it. Press it and hold it, there we go. And what that does is it zeroes it out. It's called tearing. So it puts it down to 0. And I would recommend starting off with really close to the same amount of clay over and over and over. Alright, so I'm going to wedge up some clay. Now, when I start a project, I go, how much time do I have? I have 1 hour and 10 minutes to cover this. Remember to, either today or, no, today I need to do it. To remind me to show you the last thing on glazing. I was going to do that, I forgot. So each one of these is about 3 pounds. So I'm going to wedge them up and then wedge them together. Throw one more in there. Now, how many of you are interested in learning how to throw a vase or a bottle? Yeah, a couple of you. Okay, so we'll show you that. Now, why is starting out with the same amount of clay important?
So that they all can end up being the same size.
They can all be pretty similar. But if you start out with one at 1.5, one at 1.7, one at 1.9, they're going to be different sizes. Now, could you make some nesting molds? So bigger, medium, smaller, small? Of course you could. Right, you can make that into a set. So we're going to take this over here. Set that on there. 10.5 pounds. 10.5 divided by 1.7 is 6.5. So I'm just going to guesstimate it. You ready? What does that say? Oh, 1.6. 1.7. So there are potters who even have more accurate scales than this, and they will get these tiny little amounts because they're getting it exact. So I'm just going to get this at 1.7. Pat that together. And we're going to do that a few times. So we cut it, we look at it, 1.4, we add some clay. 1.7. And we pat that together. You can re-wedge it up, you choose. I'm not too worried about it. That's going to be heavy. Oh no, that's like right on. Sometimes things are good. So I'm going to do 4 of these. One, 6, 1, 7. That leaves, what does that say, 3.5 almost? Throw that in there. I'm going to wedge up 2, 3 more, just in case. You never know. You never know if you're going to fail, succeed. Friday, after our next demo, I'm going to let you choose where you start. So once you see our hand-built project, wheel throne, I'm going to let you choose, as long as we have about a split class, so that we don't have too many people on the wheel at one time. And then next Tuesday, we're going to start this project. So either the hand-built or the wheel throne. Let's clean this up. Okay. So throwing a bowl. Some of you have done this. Well, most of you have done it. Let's talk about how we do it on purpose. So we take our clay, pat it down, it should start to stick. Somebody stole my sponge. Hardly a sponge, but great sponge. And we're going to start the wheel. We're going to seal it. We're going to lift it. So wedge it, portion it. Those are your first steps. Smack it down and seal it. So wedge it and portion it. You could call that one step, which is the same as just regular throwing. Put it on the wheel, smack it down and seal it. Okay, cone it. So we're gonna raise this up, squeeze at the bottom, lift up and roll over. And then we're gonna bring it down. Those should be things you understand pretty well. When we get down to the bottom, it's gonna be a little wobbly, so we're gonna refine it. So that would be number 5, right? So wedge it and portion it, seal it, cone it up, cone it down is 4, and refine it is 5. So we're going to push up, push down, push up, push down. And hopefully as you're watching, this makes more sense than it did a month and a half, 2 months ago when we first started this process, because you have some more information. Little wobbly. I would throw a slightly wobbly cylinder. I won't throw a wobbly bowl. If your bowl is wobbly from the start, it's going to get thick and thin, and we don't want that. I'm going to come in here, refine that more, hold steady. If it's not refining, you need to take it way out of its comfort zone. So bring it way up, bring it way down. Looks good. So once it's refined, we're going to open it. Create that little scoop, push in and down. Now, for you, for me, I want a thick bottom. I want mine to be at least 2 wood knife thicks at the bottom, maybe even 3. And I'll show you why in a second. We're going to trim up a bowl. But what you can do, you can come in here and measure that. Take my needle tool though. You remember the little trick for measuring? Someone took my towel too. Hey Marcus, will you go up front and find me a towel? Take a little ball, push it down, pull it up, and I've got that there. So I'm at 2 thicknesses, and that should be good. All right. It's going to close itself up, or you can help it. Now, if it's a really small opening, you're going to want to...
Shirt. Does that work?
That'll work for today. You're going to want to open it just a tiny bit, just so you can kind of get your hand down in there, but not too much. Now, there's 2 places you could go. You could come here to this opening, so you're going to pull towards you and swoop up, or you can come go to our pulling position. Either one's fine. So I like to go over here. So my index finger is not fitting in. So I'm going to use my middle finger. I'm going to grab the clay. I'm going to start to pull over. When I get about halfway into my wall, I'm going to swoop up. If you go too far, you create a really flat bottom. We don't want that. So pull over, then I'm going to swoop up. Outside is pretty straight. Inside has a curve to it. So refining, then you're going to open down and then open towards you and swoop up. And that's where we change from a cylinder to a bowl. On steps, I would recommend always compressing your rim. So as this is going, just compress your rim. There should be a paper up there. All right, now, I want you to look at this real quick. Is that a bowl shape? You're like, I don't know what you want me to say. Is the inside a bowl shape?
Yeah.
Is the outside a bowl shape?
No.
Okay. Just keep that in mind. So we're going to come here, back to our throwing position. This is why we stick with our fingers across from each other. So I'm going to put my thumbs together, I'm going to push together, and I'm going to draw the inside of my bowl shape with my inside hand. Make sure it's plenty wet. Grab the clay, hold on to it for a second, and then squeeze and lift. Nice and slow, nice and gentle. Do you see how the outside is still fairly straight? Is that a bowl shape on the inside? Okay. Let's do this one more time. If you noticed, I'm taking the water out every time, and I'm making it dry. I'm going to go down to the bottom. I'm also going to slow my wheel down just a little bit. If my wheel's going fast and I grab this clay, centrifugal force is going to throw me. I'm going to come in here, index finger and middle finger. I'm just going to kind of guide the walls into my right hand index finger. Nice and slow, nice and gentle. We don't, what? We don't jerk our clay around. We don't just shove it to one side. Okay, take the water out, assess it. This looks good. Your bottom is probably gonna be a little bit thicker than mine because you probably won't lift as much, and that'll be okay. And now we're gonna do a couple of things. So that was push down, so open up, open and swoop. That's the word you want. You want that swooping motion. And you're gonna do that 2 or 3 or 4 times. If you're not getting a lot of movement, you're not pinching the clay enough. So we're gonna swoop over. We're gonna hang out here. We're gonna compress our rim just a little bit. And now we're going to use our rib. Remember, I wanted you to practice this because now's where it's important. We're gonna come in here. First off, do you see how dry that looks? Right now, it doesn't look shiny. There's a couple of spots, but I'm gonna come in at 7 o'clock. The round part is pointed towards my knee. It's gonna hit almost to the bottom and bend just a little bit. Roll it into the center. Slow movements. And I'm gonna roll it out. It's gonna give me a tiny bit of volume on the outside, but not a lot. If you get a lot of volume, the chance of your bowl slumping goes up because there's nothing holding right there. Okay, compressed on the inside, right? Will you grab me a paper towel? Now I'm gonna take the flat part and I'm gonna rib the outside. Now that I have a little bit of roundness to it, I'm gonna come just underneath. I know you can't really see it. Perfect, thank you. And I'm just gonna come underneath. It's just gonna wraps around. I'm just supporting the inside. Very little pressure. and lift up. Outside gets compressed. Okay? Now, we didn't cover this the last time we talked about bowls. We're going to fix the rim. So I'm going to take a piece of paper towel like this. I'm going to fold it in half. The fold is going to point towards my left leg. So it's going to be right here. I'm going to get it wet. Okay, so I'm going to create a nice round and smooth rim. And I don't want a lot of water, but if you don't have any water, it's going to catch. So the fold is towards me. I'm going to hold it in two hands, start my wheel. The number one mistake you'll make is you're going to push this on there and then start your wheel. And you're going to make your wheel go wobbly, or your bowl go wobbly. So you're going to come in here, just gently press this down, roll this around. A round rim is stronger, it's more stable, and it looks better. It holds glaze better. Now we're going to, so on our steps, where did we leave off? So we swooped up, we pulled a couple of times, okay, then we ribbed the inside, we ribbed the outside. Those are two separate things. Make sure you're doing both. Then we compressed the rim with a paper towel. Now we're going to use our wood rib underneath. So you see how it comes down like this, and it has a little skirt at the bottom. We're just going to hold this, and once the wheel's going, we're going to slowly press that in. Take off a little bit of the clay, look at it, come in, take the stuff off the bottom. And as we look at it, some of you up close can kind of see, it goes up and there's a little kind of rough edge and it goes into the bowl. We can leave that because we'll trim it up later, or you can put it in, and what you're going to do is push your tool in, you can tilt up a little bit and then angle it so it knife cuts that away. So I'm going to come in here, in and angle. And then if it's not enough, come in with your finger and just clean that up. Okay. This. Now we're going to cut it off. So, any questions on those steps so far? We're going to do them again, and it'll be great. Grab a board, even the smallest ones, put them on your bucket. They don't need to go tilted here or up here. Just set them on your bucket right there. You're going to grab a wire tool. Doesn't matter which one. You're going to wrap it around your fingers, and you're going to push down with your thumbs. I do this with a little spin. You do not have to have a spin on here. So I'll do it without a spin first. So we're going to push down. I'm going to pull towards me. As I pull towards me, my elbows go out. And you got to do this consciously. You got to pull your elbows out. If you don't and your hands move towards each other, the wire is going to loop. And if the wire loops and it's in the clay, it'll actually loop up and cut through your bottom. So push down, pull towards you. Oh, I kind of slipped on there. Pull towards you and elbows out. Now there's some very specific steps on this, and I was going to cover this before. So it goes like this. Cutting off your piece looks just like this. You finish up, it's all ribbed and everything. If you didn't grab a board already, you're going to go over and grab a board. That's the first thing you do before you cut it. Okay. Anytime you walk away from your wheel, turn your wheel off. Because what if somebody accidentally hits your pedal? Ooh, there goes your bowl. That would really suck. So I have my board. I make sure it's nice and dry. I clean my hands off. I cut through. And I'm going to pick it up just like this. So my thumb and my middle finger go all the way to the bottom. That's where the most clay is. Okay? And I'm going to twist and lift up. You twist and lift up like that. If your clay is thick, thin, or wet, or has a flat bottom, this is going to be harder to do. So the inside's flat. So make sure that you are following these steps. We're going to come in here, twist and lift. If your bowl gets bent a little bit, you can come in and straighten it out just a hair. Okay, so we have a bowl, right? All right, set that over there. Let's do another one real quick. So, I meant to do something on that one, but we're going to seal it, cone it down. So I coned it up, coned it down, refine it. Max, will you grab me a sheet of newsprint, and I want it cut in half in the newspaper drawer. So I'm going to open this up, down, and if you notice, I use a sponge for nearly everything. I know where I want my thickness to be. Measure that if you need to. And then the next move is to swoop, right? I'm going to swoop up. Actually, I'm going to compress my rim. I'm going to swoop up, pull over, swoop up, take the water out. You can just set it right there. Oh, I'll take both of them. I just wanted to cut it in half. Okay, see how the outside is straight up? The inside has a curve to it. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna grab down at the bottom. If you're not getting movement, it's because you're not pushing together long enough. So I'm gonna push together, grab that clay, and move my hands up. Always slowly letting go. And that last pull was a big one. So this one here, all I'm doing is checking for thickness, making sure it's all pretty much the same thickness. Take the water out. Because you're going to be throwing from day to day to day, I want you to start with the same amount of clay. You can also measure this. So you can come over here, you can grab a ruler and be like, that is 6 inches to the center mark. So right in the middle of my rim there, and 3 3/4 inches tall. So you could throw something and be like, okay, that's pretty close to what it was before. Okay, if we came over here, 3 3/4 inches tall, 6 inches to the center mark, pretty amazing. Okay, you ready for the next step? So we're gonna rib this, that's why I grab my rib. Then I'm gonna trim something. Then I'm gonna show you another way to throw a bowl. And then I'm gonna throw a vase / bottle or two. So we rib that, or rib the outside. We're going to, the reason we use paper towels is if they end up in the pug machine, it's not that big of a deal. Just gonna come in here and clean that up. Going to use my wood rib at the bottom. Clean that up pretty well. Okay, your extra clay is just gonna go in your bucket or in there. And then we're gonna cut this off. Now, there's a board there. I'm gonna cut that. Cut through. If you're getting a lot of warping or wobbling, go over, grab a piece of paper like this, and you're going to set it on like that, okay? And you're just going to carefully run that on your rim. I am going to cut this again. And what this will do is it traps the air and it stiffens the rim, so when you pull this off, it doesn't bend as much. Will it still bend? It can, but not as much. So I trimmed it, and I just lift that straight off like that, and then it just peels off. So if you're getting warping, you're picking these up and they're just warping all over the place, make sure they're dry, compressed, and then you can throw on a piece of paper like that, and that'll help to make it so it doesn't warp as much. And if you're still having a problem, come find me. We'll work through it. Okay. Let's trim a bowl. Threw these yesterday. They're a good leather hard. First thing we're going to do, and for those of you who start on the wheel, we're going to go 2 or 3 days in, and then I'm going to do another trimming demo so you can remember. I just want to show you what we're doing. So we're going to come in here, and you can use rulers, you can use needle tools, but anything that's flat, throw it in like that. Throw this down at the bottom and lift it straight up and down here. And that's going to tell you from the bottom to there. So it goes right there. So I have a 1/2 inch, almost a 1/2 of an inch of thickness at the bottom. Okay. You can use a needle tool and a ruler. I usually just use something like that. And I lift it up from the bottom of my wood knife to the top. If you look, if you're close, you can see that there's about 2 thicknesses of my wood knife, which is about what I want. Now, we're going to flip this over, and I'm going to center this. And again, this is going to be the quick demo. But if I hold my thumb in one spot, do you see how it's hitting and moving away, hitting and moving away? Okay, and that means anytime it hits, there's more clay between my thumb and the center mark on the wheel than the center mark on the other side. So what that looks like in a circle is this. If right here is centered, that's a centered ring, but you see how there's more clay here than there? Okay, so I want to make that equal. So I do that by coming here, hit, 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 and I'm going to slow my wheel down. I'm not pushing anymore, and it's hitting right there, right where my circle says it's going to be thick. I am going to come in here and write some little numbers. This is 1, 2, 3, and 4 Roman numerals, and we'll just make sure that that's right. So hit, yep, it's right on 1. So I'm going to move it away from that spot, which is going to make this circle no longer needed. It's obsolete. I'm going to grab it with my thumbs and my middle fingers, just move away a little bit, and I'm going to come and check again. Hit, hit, so it's hitting right on 3, so right here. So we move it just a tiny bit, little micro adjustments. Right on 3. So I didn't do it enough. And there will come a point where you go, that's probably okay. It's hitting on 4, so I went a little too far. And sometimes our bottom is just a little bit warped. It's a little bit of an oval, and that's okay. That looks good to me. I'm going to take 3 little chunks of clay. I'm going to push down on my bowl. I'm going to take my little chunk of clay, put it next to my bowl, push down on my bowl to hold it steady, push straight down, and wrap around. Push straight down and wrap around. So, second sheet in, sorry, I forgot to tell you, there is a trimming thing. If we don't get them all today, that's fine. We'll cover it again. So what's the point of trimming? Anyone want to take a guess? What's the point of trimming? Make it even? Okay, so to clean it up, there's another point of trimming.
Make it look real nice and pretty.
Nice and pretty. There's another. I don't know about straightening it. I mean,
No, like strengthen.
not really. Not on the strengthen. So we're gonna clean it up. We're gonna make it look good. We're also gonna take the weight off the bottom. So right now, that's the heaviest part of my bowl. So I'm gonna come in here. This is a trimming tool. There's other trimming tools. This is the one I like. I'm gonna hold at 3 o'clock. I'm gonna support with my left hand. It's barely gonna touch the bottom of my bowl. And I'm just gonna gently carve away. Trimming, the key to trimming is to pick a spot and barely move your tool. A lot of you will get on here, you'll be like, and you'll get these weird cuts. And you pick a spot. I'm just gonna roll this over. This gives me my nice bowl shape. I'm just gonna barely move this down. My goal for a bowl is to make the curve on the outside and the curve on the inside nearly the same. So the thickness is nearly the same. And in fact, anytime a bowl breaks at my house, if it's not saved, I get kind of upset because I want to see how I threw that bowl. Because if it's broken, we're going to throw it away, right? But I want to see before I throw it away. Did I do a good job throwing that bowl? Okay. Trim that. We're going to come up on top. And again, for those of you who are going to start on the wheel, we're going to do another trimming demo a couple days in. For those of you who are starting on hand building, we'll do another throwing and trimming demo after spring break. So I'm just going to come in here. So there are some diagrams in your packet. This is how I trim a foot. I learned how to trim from Brian Jensen. It is not the only way to trim a foot, but it is a great way to trim a foot. We'll do this just for fun. If you want to add some texture to your pieces, you can come in and add texture. Pretty simple, pretty fun. Now, you see the difference? Okay, and I'm going to show you different ways to do this, but here, will you push down on the ridge? Yeah, I'm just going to pull it through. It should come. It's just a little dry. Come on, buddy. There we go. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to pass this around. Oh, they got a little thin down on that side. I'm going to pass it around, and you're going to see why we trim. We have the foot and what it looks like. Okay, so you can pass that around. All right. All right, let's throw another bowl. So we're going to start the wheel. We're going to seal it. We're going to cone it. We're going to bring it down. And we're going to refine it. So you're just learning how to get this stuff moving. For me, when I'm doing production work, I get all my clay wedged up for something that I'm going to cover in about 2 hours. That's about how long I want to sit, which is also about how long a movie is. Because if I'm at school, I just sit here and watch the screen while I throw. And I actually did this last Friday. I came in and I threw almost 40 mug bodies because I want to make a whole bunch of mugs. And then Sunday I came in and trimmed most of them. And then yesterday I put handles on half of them. You don't have to do that. When I'm throwing bowls, I can throw between 16 and 20 bowls an hour. So I get 20, almost 40 chunks of clay wedged up. I sit down and pretty soon I have 32 to 40 bowls. It's pretty sweet. Okay, let's get back here. Hit the rim. We've got this clay. I'm going to pull over and up. Is that a bowl? It's almost a bowl. It's just really thick at the bottom. So we're going to do one more pull. Is that a bowl? Almost. It's more like a cylinder, right? So let's throw one more little pull. We're still a cylinder, right? Okay. Start. I don't have any curve on the side, or there's a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah, but the inside has a curve. So the inside is not a cylinder. The outside is still cylindrical. So if you're making bowls and you're struggling, but you can make a decent cylinder, okay? Because on purpose making a bowl is harder than we think. You're gonna take a wood rib like this, get it wet. I clean that out. We're gonna put it on the inside, kind of like our metal rib, but we're gonna use the wood one. I'm gonna put it down at the bottom. I'm gonna push over just a little bit, lean out just a little bit, and then lift up. So I'm gonna come in here, push down and in. I'm gonna push out just a little bit, lean down just a little bit, and then lift up. Is that a bowl?
That's starting to look like a bowl.
Starting to look more like a bowl. Okay, so there are ways to fix the problems if we struggle. And then we can come in with our rib. Rib the outside. That's a little more straight up than I like, but the reason it's straight up is because there's a lot of clay there. But it'll be all right. I'm going to take the extra clay off the bottom. I'm going to cut it. Make sure to grab your board first. Here's my board. Are those both bowls?
Yes.
Absolutely they are. This is my soup cereal bowl. It's what I make when I'm throwing a consistent soup or cereal bowl over and over. If I was going to do a bowl on purpose this size, I'd start with 1.4 pounds of clay. Okay? But as beginners, your goal is to get a bowl shape. Okay, we can trim that up later, we can clean it up, we can take some of the weight off, and it'll be perfectly acceptable. Let me show you another way to throw a bowl. Or something else, let me just show you something else. And then we're gonna move to vases. So we're gonna seal it, cone it, bring it down, refine it. While I'm doing this, do you have any questions on the steps or the requirements. Okay, it's refined. I'm going to open it. Okay, now I'm going to open it out, which is also the swoop. Pull over and lift up. Okay, we've just established that this is almost a bowl, right? So if you do one more pull, and every time it gets wobbly, every time it flops, every time something happens, you need to do one of two things. Well, you need to do two things. One, you need to call me over so I can help you adjust. You're probably going too fast on the wheel or moving your hands too fast. That's probably what's happening. Over or up. Two, we can take this right here and just turn it into a nice little bowl, okay? I want to lift it up just a tiny bit more. So let's say we get it to this next step. So we grab this, we lift it up there. Kind of like what we just had over there. Inside's nice and round, the outside's a little thick, okay? But every time you pull one more, it flops, it wobbles, and it's not where you want it to be. Let's talk about it, let's work through it, and or we can come in here trim off a bunch of clay. Like so. Oh, I didn't do on either of these. What's the rim? Okay, let me tell you what a set is. A set is 4 identical bowls, right? Which makes sense. You want to know what a set for you is? A set of 3 or 4 bowls that you made on the wheel that have a similar color scheme to them. That's it. I'm not going to be like, oh, you have to have 4 identical bowls to get a good grade on this class. In this class, you can have that one, and you can have that one, and you can have this one, and then we'll trim them all up, and then you'll glaze them similarly. You'll take them home, and you have a cereal bowl, you have a yogurt bowl, and you have a salsa bowl. And how cool would that be? You think it'll be cool? I think it'll be cool. Actually, one of my favorite bowls is one that my son made. He's 23. And it was a little wonky. It's a little not like this. It has a little chip in it. And we eat it all the time, out of it all the time. And I love it. I love that bowl so much. It makes me happy. And it's not, I wouldn't say it is as beautiful as mine. I make a nice bowl. But he made it, and it stays at my house. And he has a son, and his son comes over and eats out of it, and I just love it. Okay. What else makes up for you on the requirements? Oh, the 3 main things, and 2 of them are actually super important, and 1 is less important. The 3 main things I look for in a bowl are this. Does it have a roundness to it? That's the least important, okay? If you end up making something that's flat, you can still eat out of it. It's a salad bowl, it's a baking dish, you can eat cereal out of it, you'll find a way, okay? The 2 things that are most important are that the rim is cleaned up and not sharp and not flat. Because sharpness, when you hit it with a spoon, it's going to create chips. And then the bottom, the foot. What touches the table, in my opinion, is the most important part of a bowl. Because if it's scratching your table, it's not going to be used very often, right? So I'm going to teach you how to trim. I'm also going to teach you a couple of ways to just clean up. Anyone remember on your mugs when I said take a sponge, get it wet, squeeze it out, and smooth out some of your areas? We're going to do that same thing on our bowls. So even if you have a hard time trimming and you get it nicer than this but not all the way trimmed, we can take those chunks and smooth them out so that when your bowl sits on the table, it'll function properly. Because again, that is the first thing that functions. On a mug, the handle and the foot are the most important, and then the rim. On a bowl, the foot and the rim. That's the most important things. Okay, any questions on that? And for decoration, let's talk time frame. And while we do this, I'm going to start throwing 3 pounds of clay for a vase. You don't have to start with 3 pounds. You can start with 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds. Time frame. The first rotation is going to start on Tuesday. And you're going to choose if you're going to do hand building or wheel throwing. Whoa. And you're going to go, I want to say 7 days. So it looks like this. Tuesday, Friday, because Wednesday of next week is a non-school day for everyone except for juniors. Lucky you. So Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then we have spring break. And for you, we'll talk about this when we get closer. So I'm just going to make a big cylinder. I'm going to open this. So all the steps are the same as making a cylinder, and then I'll tell you what we change. So then we go spring break, and we come back, and you'll be here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And I don't know if you just have Monday and Wednesday, or if you have Monday and Wednesday and Friday to work and finish up. So it's either a 6 or a 7 day project. So I'm going to just pull towards me, creating a flat bottom, flat and square sides. And then we'll switch. So those of you who were wheel throwing, we'll go and hand build. If you're hand building, we'll wheel throw. We'll do some quick demos. You can re-watch videos, whatever you need to do to make sure you're ready to switch. All right, I'm going to pinch and grab that clay. As I lift, make sure you're tilting inward. The number one thing when people start to throw bigger or make vases that they forget to do is pull all the way out and make sure so that they make sure they can lift all that clay up. So what you tend to get is a really thick, heavy piece on the bottom. I'm going to come in, elbows into my rib cage, push in, grab that clay, move it up. If you look on your diagrams, my finger is just barely above, my inside finger is just barely above my outside finger. I can't remember what they show us. Their finger above. Yeah. So it's barely above. We call that the leading finger. So whatever direction I'm going, that hand is above the other hand. So if I'm going out, my outside hand, my leading hand, is above my inside hand. If I'm going in, my leading hand, my inside hand is going above. All right, we're going to just come in here and just check for thickness. I don't want to go so thin that when I shape this, it rips apart. So I'm going to take the water out of the inside. So I made a cylinder, and this could be the same cylinder you just threw. So 5 to 6 inches. It doesn't have to be 7 or 8 inches like this. I'm just taking the water out of the inside. And now I'm going to clean off the bottom. Make sure you add some water to that. Clean off that down here. And I'm going to rib the outside. I like the metal rib, some people like a wood rib. If it's fairly flat, I'm gonna use the round part of my rib. If it has some curve in a second, I'll use the flat part. Just gonna come in here and compress this clay. I'm not trying to move it, shape it, just compress it. Lift that up. Now, you got to think about what shape you want. And the next mistake that most people do, they go, well, I want my opening at the top to be this wide. So they throw their cylinder that wide. But what you want to do is throw your cylinder to the width of the neck. So if it's going to come out, back in, and then back out, that thickness of, or that width of the neck is where you want your cylinder to be. So I'll add shape here, and I'll lift this out just a little bit if I'm just doing like a classic vase shape. So that's going to look like this. Add some water. And I'm going to grab the clay at the bottom. I'm going to start to lift up and out a little bit. So my right hand is going to be above. I'm going to get to where I want my middle spot to be. I'm going to equalize or put them to the same level. And then I'm going to move inwards and my inside hand is going to go above. Remember, whichever direction is leading is above. So we're going to come here. We're going to grab the clay and start to lift up and out. A little bit of shape there. Middle, come back up. And then move into the neck. Like that. Okay, before I mess with the rim, I'm going to rib the outside. That may take you 2 or 3 times. Okay, I'm going to use the flat part. I'm just going to rib this up. Nice like that. And then we decide what we're going to do with the top. If I was making a bottle, I would start pushing it up, and I'll make a bottle in a second. If you are in for a challenge, a bottle is a challenge. I want this neck just a little bit more in, so I'm going to add a little bit of water. I'm just going to squeeze in just lightly there. Okay, now to bring this out, I'm just going to put my right knuckle underneath. I'm going to push in and just draw that line. I come in here nice and slow, nice and controlled. I'm going to draw that line out there. So I have kind of that classic vase shape. Does it have to be that shape? No. This you could turn into a pitcher if you wanted to. Put a handle on it, put a spout on it, whatever works for you. I'm just going to use a sponge on the rim. Clean up the bottom. So back to time frames. I'm going to try something new this year. I don't know if it's going to last 1 day or 2 days, but we're going to split into groups, and you're going to choose, and we're going to, remember that day, I think we did in this class, where somebody kind of sat next to you and guided you through your steps? Did we do that in this class? Okay. No? Yeah? I think we did. Okay. Well, I think we did. We're going to do that. And again, I don't know if it's going to be the first 2 days or just 1 day, but you'll choose a partner, or we'll assign you a partner, and they're going to have their steps. You're going to be working, and they're going to guide you through. And you're going to do a couple of them, and then you're going to switch and do a couple of them. You're going to help guide each other through. And that guiding should push us to success a little bit quicker. There was a workshop at the last thing I went to down in Moab, and there's a teacher who does that, and they do guided learning with somebody literally like, here's the steps. And when you're confused, instead of you having to look for the steps, they're there to remind you what the steps are. And then you can have conversations. It should be good. And again, we can decide 1 day, 2 days. I'm going to guess 1 day is probably going to be enough. So let's remember the 6 variables. Anyone want to tell me what they are? Wheel speed.
And pressure.
Pressure is one of them. You can't feed him answers.
You won't even say it, even though I told you.
Wheel speed.
Water.
Water content. Nice. Body position. Remember that changes. Where our body's at, where our hands are at. Pressure. How much and when and why do we change and what direction? What's number 5? Know your steps. The best you can remember. Pull this towards you. And what's number 6?
Be kind to yourself.
Yeah. Remember, you're brand new. You're still brand new. I haven't gotten to grade any of your cylinder cutoffs yet. Some of you, I'll give comments. Some of you I won't. It just depends on what I'm seeing. But if you feel like you put in the effort, then you did good. We're going to do the same thing here. We're going to put in the effort. So we're going to spend at least the first day. Okay, I'm going to make a bottle, so I got to make sure that my upper part's just a little bit thicker than normal. We're going to spend the first day guiding each other. Second day doing your own thing. Third day will probably be a trimming demo. And then you'll work some more, because some of you will start getting bowls to trim. Fourth day will be another day of just working, maybe some trimming. Then again I think that's when we have spring break. Then when we come back, you'll trim. Hopefully you bagged them up properly and they stayed well. If not, then you'll start again and you'll make them. And then by about the 5th day, we'll be done throwing for the most part. Then the 6th day you'll trim, 7th day you'll trim, 6th and 7th day you can also hand decorate. So if you want to paint on, like we saw those narwhals, right? You would do something like that, you could do that. Or we can trim them, get them put in the kiln, and then after the 7th day and they're fired, you can glaze them. And we'll talk about different ways to glazing a bowl. So I'm gonna shape this just a little bit. I ribbed it. I'm just gonna push out just a hair. And when I'm making a bottle, I'm just gonna keep moving in. I'm gonna bring my left hand on the outside. I'm pushing in and up. Yeah, I'm gonna stretch that out a little bit. Take out the water from the inside. If you don't take the water out, you're gonna have a crack at the bottom. No, there's one here. I'm gonna rib this. If you don't rib it, it's going to collapse. Still might. It's usually thin spots. All right, add some water. I'm gonna come in with, right now, 2 little C's, and with my middle fingers in the middle. I'm gonna push in and lift up. If you don't lift up, you're gonna create a shoulder. The shoulder's gonna flop. do a little modified poll. My definition of a vase, that's kind of funky, is the opening and the body are pretty similar in size. My definition of a bottle is the opening and the body are significantly different. That's my definition. Some people would call this a vase. I don't. I call it a bottle. If it's smaller, sometimes they call it a bud vase because you put in one flower, push in and up. Nice and controlled, nice and slow. Now you might ask, what good is a bottle? You could put olive oil in it if you want. But for me, bottles are just decoration. I make them so they can sit on the shelf and just look cool. And every time I bring a bottle home, my wife's like, "Really? What are we gonna do with that? I can't even put flowers in it." Good. It doesn't want flowers in it. Ribbing is one of my favorite things in the whole world. Just sit here and hang out with that form. Okay, we have 10 minutes, actually like 12. So, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to talk about glazing. Do you have any questions? No questions? Any comments, concerns? Things that make your brain wigged out a little bit? Yeah.
How can you make a vase that's like really thin all the way?
All the way, throw a really tall, skinny cylinder. Cassidy, what are you doing?
Just grab one.
Why?
So I'll just make it for a car.
Oh,
If that's okay with you.
so they can hang out in your car for
5 months.
5 months. Nice. Okay. Has anyone not met Cassidy?
Take it over.
Yeah.
Just like this.
Is that weird?
Yeah.
Is it? It's probably weirder for her than me. Right?
How does it listen to you?
I know. Pretty standard. Okay, one more thing. Because I got the clay. Is there anything on your sheet you want me to clarify? Not everybody throws bowls the same. The guy in the demo throws them similar to what I do. I can't remember, I think he does one thing different, but hand positions are slightly different. I'm notorious for watching videos being like, why the heck would they do it that way? But they get results, so it's probably okay. Most people, when they're throwing, pull too many times. They're not getting their clay where it needs to be as quick as possible. Most people, in my opinion, use way too much water. As beginners, it's okay to use a lot of water. But as a seasoned, they're not taking their water out, and then they complain that they have these cracks. And I'm like, well, it's because you don't take your water out. The more you throw, the more your water bucket becomes slip, which means it's harder and harder to work with. Slow down your wheel. If you have a different bowl shape in mind and want to talk about it, please let me know. If you bring me a picture or something, and I can look at it. So you, by the end of your 7 days, oh, I didn't talk about this. You're not just making 4 bowls. You're making like 12 to 15 attempts at making bowls. Okay, so if you're gonna pick your 4 best. And that's the best part. When I'm throwing a ton of bowls, I will throw a bunch and then I will separate them into groups of 4 or 8. Be like, oh, those are all the same size. Oh, those are all a little different. Okay. So you're gonna pick your 4 best or 3 best. Wherever we end up, it'll be fine. And then that includes, I'm just going to gently lay this down. That includes mess ups. So if you attempt 12 to 15 times and end up with 8 to trim, you trim all 8, you mess up on a couple of those, you end up with 3 or 4 finished pieces, you'll be good, okay? And for some of you, you'll take these to college and people will be like, no way you did that. And you're like, yeah, I did that. So that's like a display bowl. Put fruit in that on your table. Sick. All right, let's run to the front. Let's finish up with the glazing.